The food web is the acknowledgement that the fish are not the only living organism in the tank.
Welcome to Patty's Aquatics, and if you can't tell, this is part 3 in the series of videos with Father Fish, and it's about the food web. What we're going to do is really take a deep dive into what the food web is. It's not just taking a handful of leaf litter from the bottom of a lake or river and chucking it in your aquarium. It's about the introduction of microscopic life, of macroscopic life, and bacteria, so they can all work together to create the perfect ecosystem within your aquariums. So don't take it from me, take it from Father Fish himself.
The next question is about the food web. I know you explained a little bit before about the benefits really of it for feeding to maintain your aquarium, but for those who may not know really what the food web is, what is it exactly? How do you get it? How do you collect it? That type of stuff.
The food web is the acknowledgement that the fish are not the only living organism in the tank. And that the microscopic world, the things we can't see, are every bit as important, if not more important, than the fish and the plants and the snails in the tank. In order to have that microscopic and macroscopic. Macroscopic are the stuff you can see, like the scuds and the daphnia, even the paramecium, which if it's there thick enough, you can see. Those are the creatures that maintain the stability of the environment, because they work in cooperation with the bacteria to break down waste. By breaking down waste, its toxicity is removed from the equation. The waste is no longer toxic then. It becomes a food source because you're providing something to eat it. Now, you can't do this very well with a lid on your tank sitting in a living room. You're pulling water out of it every week. It'll happen, but it'll take many years for it to happen. The solution is to go out into a creek, a healthy creek, where there are fish swimming around and plants growing. Dip out some of that. I used to say mud. Don't do mud. Leaf culture, muck, the stuff, the flotsam and jetsam, if you will. Not pieces of plastic and rotted steel, although steel would be good. But the vegetation, the vegetation that's breaking down, that has living in and among it all of the little microscopic animals, all of the life. You bring that in, and you can do it gradually. You should do it gradually. In gradual amounts, start putting that into your tank. Well, what about parasites? I know. Here's the thing about parasites. Fully 50% of every living organism is a parasite. You cannot avoid parasites. What you need to understand is what parasites are feeding on. They're feeding on other parasites. You control parasites with parasites. In other words, you recognize that nature is in balance. It's not out of whack. It's in whack. It gets out of whack when we try to kill stuff. When we try to kill a whole segment of living organisms, then it gets out of whack. When we are supporting it and nurturing it and trusting it, we learn to depend upon it. We begin to recognize and acknowledge how profoundly healthy it is, how vastly more effective at maintaining its balance it is than we are able to achieve. We begin to understand that nature knows better how to maintain that little aquarium than we do. I'm reminded constantly of the foolish notion of people who say, you can't have nature in a little glass box. Well, what exactly do you have in it if not nature?
Yep, it's not plastic fish.
It's not a Martian environment. It is an earth-bound environment. It may be encapsulated, but the laws of nature and the processes of nature still prevail in it. It may not have whales living in it, but it's got more going on in it than you're aware of. That is absolutely true. And when you were treating it as though the only thing that's going on in that tank is what you are aware of, then you are the enemy of that environment, because you're destroying it in the attempt to maintain it. Back to the global warming. We're destroying out of our stupidity, out of our arrogance, that we think we know better than God, because we are God. God isn't God. We're God. I'm God. You're God. We're in control. Malarkey. We're in control of nothing. We are creatures. No different than an amoeba is a creature. We have no more control. We do have operational effectiveness in many ways, and that provides us with a burden, with a responsibility to do what we can do to sustain. You see, I don't believe for 1 second that human beings don't belong here. We very much belong here. We are the achievement, not the failure, of a nature system that's been going on for hundreds of millions, if not billions of years. I'm not going to say we're the highest achievement. We may, in point of fact, be kind of halfway down. I don't know. Maybe porpoises are the highest achievement, or maybe the hairy man is. I don't know. But I know we have a burden, and our burden is to be farmers. It's to be caretakers. When I hear about laws that prevent children from going into creeks and turning over a rock to see what's on it, or bringing back a few bugs, laws against that are not just dehumanizing laws, they're acts of violence against nature itself. In a stupid and arrogant attempt to protect, we are destroying because we assume we are in control. And we are not in control. When we're working in Simpatico, all of the really advanced farming techniques that are being developed right now are organic. They're working with nature, working with the soil, not throwing stuff into it to make it do things, building it up to allow it to be what it is at best. We haven't learned to do that yet. Not as a population, not as a people, not as a species. And we must, if we are to survive, if this nature system is to survive our exploitation.
I don't think anyone could have said it better right there, to be honest with you. I do want to touch on one thing as far as like the whole parasite thing. I know that's a question I get a lot in some of my videos when I collect and show stuff with that. They're always worried about what could be introduced into your aquariums, and that's where I always lead them back to your Discord. I have found that to be one of the most helpful platforms to be able to not only identify things that were within my resurrection jars, because there's identification guides on there to be able to help you figure out what's good, what's bad, and just in general what they are, but just to be able to have the amount of help and people on there that are very much knowledgeable in the situation to help other people in the way that you have it structured, so like not any Joe Blow off the street who doesn't know anything about it can go on there and just try to give advice. So I find that very beneficial. I just wanted to point that out to people, that if you are in need of some answers and questions, that is a great platform to get on and take a look at.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very proud of what's happened there. And it's really happened not because of me, but almost in spite of me. The more hands off I've taken, the more it's been able to grow. I've maintained a couple of principles. And the primary one of which is, if you haven't tried this, done it, and learned how to do it, then you have no business talking about it. And there are far too many people talking about natural systems and deep substrate who have no knowledge of it at all. And their ideas are not grounded in reality. They're grounded primarily in their fear. You can't do that. They can't do it because they haven't figured out how to do it.
Absolutely.
And they're not allowing themselves to, for whatever reason. I mean, who knows? But there are people so dogmatic and so hidebound that they will die rather than admit that you can have microorganisms in a tank that are not killing everything.
I mean, I could say for myself, I know when I first learned of it through your channel, I wasn't like, say, skeptical, but it was more like, do you really do that? Is that really possible? Like, I was a little fearful, but I was like, that's one of those things where I feel in this hobby, it's very important to try different things. That's the whole part of the hobby, to be able to see what works, what doesn't. I mean, every individual hobbyist has always got what they prefer or what they like more than others, but you're really not going to know what those are unless you try those things. So I'm grateful I wound up trying it, threw it in a tank and let it see how it went. And then I wound up doing it to the majority of my tanks down here. I still got to get a few more of them. I just got lazy getting down and collecting more jars. But yeah, so I find that to be, I could see the skepticism from maybe people that don't understand it at first, but you know, to truly know that it is a possible thing. You can do it. You know, as long as, like I said, you observe those jars and really make sure that you don't have anything in there you don't want, like the dragonfly nymphs or stuff like that may hunt your fish. But other than that, the little organisms, in my opinion, that's really nothing to worry about. But
yeah, there's a concept that has been popularized for about the last 75 years that has taken over the mentality of Western civilization. The concept is sterility. The minute we discovered bacteria, about 75 years ago or so, it made our breath stop, because we suddenly realized there was an entire world of bugs out there that we didn't know anything about and had no effective control over. So our immediate reaction was kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it. And we're still in that kill it mentality. We're trying to kill everything except the one thing we're trying to keep alive, without recognizing that the only reason that one thing we're trying to keep alive is because of everything else supporting it. So when we kill all that stuff off, what's left is death. We need all of the animal life, the entire animal kingdom. We need every single bit of it in our aquarium, to the extent that it's possible to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't put a brook trout in a 10-gallon tank. A baby, maybe.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things you can't put in there because it's impractical. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's impractical. The most dangerous thing you can put in a tank is your hand. Keep your hands out of the tank and let your tank be what it needs to be, what it wants to be, what it's trying to be.
Very true statement.
That ain't an absolute, but it's a like 99%.
Well, yeah, I mean, us as humans sticking our hands in those aquariums, we're creating more of a problem than it needs to be. Like, nature will sort itself out and find its way, you know.
Yeah, water changes are the best example. The only reason to do a water change is because you have so fouled that environment that it's not possible for it to sustain life anymore. And that's exactly what the guys who are doing who have big fish in their tanks. They're fouling the water to the point where it's impossible for that water to sustain the life in the tank, because they're fouling it, because they're not allowing anything in there other than the fish. Everything else is being killed off. So there's nothing supporting that fish. There's nothing maintaining the health of the environment. So you foul it, you change it. You foul it, you change it. It is Russian roulette with a fish tank. It absolutely is, because the day is going to come where you're not going to be able to change it, and everything is going to die because you fouled it beyond its ability to sustain life. And you foul by killing. That's how you foul. You foul things by killing things. Other than pond snails and bladder snails, stop killing things.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video and really understand more what the food web actually is. Also, if you're not subscribed to my channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, but make sure you hit that notification bell because you don't want to miss the last part in this series of videos. And always remember to think outside the box and take a step back into nature. I hope to see you next time here at Patty's Aquatics.